Funerals don't just bury the dead. They expose the living. They strip people down to who they really are. Not in moments of comfort, but in moments of loss. Some people grieve with silence, some with dignity, and some use even death as a mirror to admire themselves. This is the story of how my sister chose cruelty on the day we buried our mother, and how her laughter echoed longer than she ever expected. My name is Ayla Rana. I stood at the edge of the cemetery, the cold air clinging to my skin, watching strangers lower my mother's casket into the ground. The sky was grey, the kind of grey that feels heavy, like it knows something important has ended. I wore a simple black dress, no brand name visible, no shine, no attempt to impress, just clean lines, soft fabric, and a quiet respect for the woman who had raised 2 daughters very differently. I hadn't planned the outfit for attention. I planned it for her. My mother believed grief didn't need decoration. She used to say, "Let your presence speak, not your clothes." So I listened. My sister Nora arrived late. She always did. Her heels clicked sharply against the stone path, each step announcing her presence. Before anyone even turned around, she wore a dramatic black coat, oversized sunglasses, and a designer bag with a logo so large it practically demanded recognition. She paused when she saw me. Her gaze traveled slowly, from my hair, to my dress, to my shoes, and then she laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not an awkward one, a deliberate laugh, loud enough to cut through the quiet murmurs of mourners. "That's it," she said, disbelief dripping from her voice. "That's what you're wearing to Mom's funeral." A few relatives shifted uncomfortably. Someone cleared their throat. I said nothing. Nora stepped closer, lowering her voice. "But not enough. You always did have zero sense of presentation," she said. "Honestly, Ayla, couldn't you at least try today?" Her lips curved into a smile. That didn't belong at a funeral. I felt that old, familiar pressure in my chest. The same one I'd carried since childhood. Nora was always the one praised, the one introduced proudly, the one whose achievements were posted, framed, celebrated, and I was the one with potential, the one with ideas, the one everyone expected to fail quietly. She gestured at my dress. "No label?" she asked mockingly. "No statement piece?" She tapped her own coat. "This," she said proudly, "is what respect looks like." I looked at her coat. Expensive, overbranded, loud, the opposite of my mother's taste. But again, I said nothing, because this day wasn't about sibling rivalry. It wasn't about childhood wounds. It was about saying goodbye to the only person who ever truly saw me. As the service began, the priest spoke about kindness, humility, legacy. Nora stood tall, composed, accepting sympathetic glances like applause. She believed she was winning something. But as I watched my mother's casket descend, I remembered something she once whispered to me, late at night, years ago, when I was sewing designs by hand, when no one took me seriously. She had smiled and said, "One day, people will wear your work proudly, and still underestimate you." I folded my hands, the fabric of my dress soft beneath my fingers. Custom cut, hand finished, designed by me, from the brand my sister loved to show off, from the brand she had no idea I created. And as Nora laughed quietly to herself, mocking my cheap clothes, I realized something. This funeral wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of her humiliation. After the prayers ended, people didn't leave right away. They never do. Funerals have a strange gravity. Grief pulls people together, but curiosity keeps them close. Clusters formed near the trees. Low voices, careful glances. I stood alone for a moment, watching the casket settle into the earth, trying to memorize the last shape of goodbye. That's when I felt it. Eyes on me. 2 of my mother's old friends stood a few steps away. One of them frowned slightly. "That dress," she whispered. "It looks very well made." The other nodded. "Custom, I think." Nora noticed the looks immediately. She always did. Her smile tightened. She walked back over to me, placing a hand lightly on my arm. The way people do, when they want to look kind in public. "You okay?" she asked loudly. "Must be hard, you know, when you never really found your place."
This visualization highlights
I
the
met her
complex
eyes.
global
"I'm
supply
fine,"
chain of orange
I said
juice,
quietly.
tracking its
That
movement
seemed to
from major
irritate her more than
producers.
silence ever had. She turned to a nearby cousin. "Ayla always hated brands," she said with a laugh. "Thought she was too artistic for that world." The cousin nodded awkwardly. What Nora didn't notice was who had just joined the group behind us. A woman in her late 40s. Sharp posture, minimal jewelry. She looked at me, really looked. Then her eyes dropped to my dress. Her expression changed. She stepped closer. "I hope this isn't inappropriate," she said gently. "But may I ask where your dress is from?" Nora answered before I could. "Oh, it's probably just something simple," she said dismissively. "Ayla doesn't really do labels." The woman smiled politely. "I can tell," she said. "This isn't mass-produced." She tilted her head slightly. "The stitching, the cut. It reminds me of a private collection I saw in Milan." Nora's smile froze. I felt my pulse quicken, not with fear, but with recognition. I knew that collection. I designed it. "I'm sorry," the woman continued, now looking directly at me. "Are you connected to ARN?" The name hung in the air. Soft, elegant, dangerous. Nora laughed sharply. "ARN," she repeated. "That's ridiculous." She waved her hand. "That brand is impossible to get into. Exclusive. High-end." She looked at me again, smirking. My sister wouldn't even know where to start. The woman didn't laugh. She just watched me, waiting. I took a breath. And for the first time that day, I felt my mother's voice in my chest. "Not yet," it seemed to say. "Let them talk." I lowered my gaze politely. "I'm sorry," I said softly. "Today isn't the right time." The woman nodded slowly. "Of course," she said. "But I'd love to speak later." She handed me her card. Creative Director, ARN Europe. Nora didn't see the card, but she saw the look on my face. And for the first time since the funeral began, her confidence wavered. Nora tried to laugh it off. She always did when something didn't go her way. "People say the strangest things at funerals," she said loudly, as if convincing herself. "Everyone's emotional." But her eyes followed the woman from ARN. As she walked away, closely, too closely, I slipped the card into my coat pocket, without looking at it. Not because I didn't care, because I cared too much. We moved toward the reception hall nearby, a quiet place reserved for family and close friends. Black coffee, muted conversations, the soft clink of cups, and tension. Nora stayed near me now, too near. She kept glancing at my dress, at my sleeves, at the hem, searching. Finally, she leaned in. "So," she said casually, "that woman, you know her?" "Not personally," I replied. "True." Nora frowned. "Then why did she talk to you like that?" I shrugged. She liked the dress. That answer annoyed her. She laughed again, short and sharp. "Of course she did," Nora said. "Some people can't tell quality from fantasy." That's when our aunt joined us. She studied me quietly. "Ayla," she said, "your mother mentioned your work once." Nora snapped her head toward her. "She did." Our aunt nodded. "She said you were building something international." The air shifted. Nora's smile faltered. "She exaggerated," I said gently. My aunt smiled back. She usually didn't. Nora excused herself suddenly. Her heels echoed down the hall. Running. I watched her go. Not with satisfaction. With sadness. Because deep down, she already knew. By the time everyone settled into the reception hall, Nora was no longer enjoying herself. She smiled too much, laughed too loudly, checked her phone every few seconds. That kind of behavior only means one thing: fear. She finally cornered me near the coffee table. "Ayla," she said, lowering her voice, "be honest with me." I looked at her. "Yes." She hesitated. "You didn't, work in fashion, did you?" The way she said it, casual on the surface, desperate underneath, almost made me laugh. "Almost. I design," I said simply. Her eyes widened, just for a second. "Design what?" she pressed. "Clothes." She scoffed. "That doesn't mean anything," she said quickly. "Lots of people design clothes." Her words were fast now, uncontrolled. "You can't seriously expect me to believe you're connected to some luxury brand." Before I could respond, someone else joined us. A man in a tailored charcoal suit. Confident. Quiet. He nodded politely at me. "Ayla," he said warmly, "I'm sorry for your loss." Nora stiffened. "And you are?" she asked sharply. He extended his hand. "Daniel Costa," he said, "head of global partnerships at ARN." Silence crashed down between us. Nora's face drained of color. "ARN," she repeated faintly. Daniel smiled politely. "Yes," he said. "We work closely with Ayla." He turned to me. "Your Milan investors wanted me to pass on their condolences." Nora's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "You work with her?" she asked. Daniel frowned slightly. "No," he corrected gently. "She leads us." I felt my mother's presence then. Strong, steady. Nora laughed nervously. "This is some kind of misunderstanding," she said. "My sister. She founded the brand," Daniel said calmly. Each word landed like a stone. "She turned down 3 acquisitions last year." Nora staggered back a step. "No," she whispered. "That's impossible." I finally spoke. "Not impossible," I said quietly. "Just invisible to you." The room had gone silent. Every ear was listening now, and Nora realized, far too late, that she hadn't been mocking a nobody. She had been humiliating the woman who built everything she admired. Silence spread through the reception hall like spilled ink. No whispers, no coughing, no movement. Everyone had heard it. Founded the brand, leads us, turned down acquisitions. Words Nora had used for years to impress people, now aimed straight at her. Someone near the window broke the silence. "Wait, Arn. That in." Another voice followed. "The Milan shows. The Paris collection." Heads turned. Phones slowly appeared in hands. Nora looked around wildly, as if searching for an escape route. "This isn't funny," she said sharply, forcing a laugh that fooled no one. "You're embarrassing yourself." She looked at me. "At Mom's funeral?" she hissed. "Really?" Daniel didn't flinch. "With respect," he said calmly, "this isn't about fashion." He glanced around the room. "It's about legacy." My aunt stepped forward. "Your mother knew," she said quietly, looking at Nora. She was very proud. That hurt Nora more than any accusation. "She never told me," Nora snapped. I met her eyes. "She did," I said softly. "You just never listened." A woman from earlier, the creative director, rejoined us. "I thought so," she said with a gentle smile. The craftsmanship was unmistakable. She turned to the room. "Ayla's work is studied in design schools." Gasps. Nora's hands began to shake. "You lied," she whispered to me. "All these years." I shook my head. "I waited," I replied. "There's a difference." She looked down at her coat. The logo suddenly felt loud, cheap. For the first time in her life, Nora wasn't the impressive one in the room. She was just exposed. Nora's face had gone pale, but her pride refused to let her stay quiet. That's not fair, she said suddenly, her voice sharp. You hid this from everyone. The room stayed silent. People were listening now, not politely, but carefully. I didn't hide, I said calmly. I just didn't announce. She scoffed. You let people think you were nothing. I looked at her. You decided that on your own. Nora's voice cracked. All these years, she said, I was the successful one, the stable one. She laughed bitterly. And you just let me believe that. Daniel spoke again, gently this time. Success doesn't always make noise, he said. Some of the strongest brands grow quietly. Nora didn't look at him. She was staring at me. You think you're better than me now, she accused. I shook my head slowly. No, I said. I think I'm free. That word did it. Free. Her shoulders slumped. Tears welled up, real ones this time. She loved you more, Nora whispered. The room softened. But I didn't move. She loved us differently, I said. And that's not something you can compete with. Nora covered her face. For the first time, there was no audience left to impress. People slowly began to move again. Soft conversations restarted. But the energy had changed. No one was laughing now. Nora stepped away from me, wiping her face quickly, trying to regain control. She hated losing control. A few relatives approached me quietly. I had no idea, one whispered. Your mother spoke about you often. Another said, she would have been so proud. I thanked them, but my eyes followed Nora. She stood alone near the window, staring outside. The designer coat hung heavy on her shoulders now. Later, she came back. Her voice was lower. I didn't know, she said, that you were serious. I nodded. That's okay. She looked surprised. You're not angry,
Here,
she asked.
the bumphead
I
parrotfish
considered
grazes
it.
peacefully
I
among
was,
the corals,
I said
while
honestly,
schools of damselfish
for a long
dart
time.
through the dramatic shafts
She
of light.
swallowed. And now, I met her eyes. Now I just don't need your approval anymore. That hurt her more than anger ever could. After the reception ended, people began to leave one by one. No rush, no drama, just a slow return to normal life. I stepped outside for air. The sky had started to clear, thin sunlight breaking through the clouds. It felt symbolic, but I didn't linger on it. Daniel joined me. You handled that with grace, he said. I learned from my mother, I replied. He nodded. She raised you well. Inside, Nora watched from a distance. She didn't come over again. Some realizations need space to settle. Before I left, I walked back to the grave. I placed my hand on the cool stone. Thank you, I whispered, for believing when I couldn't. For the first time that day, I felt light, not victorious, free. Life didn't explode after the funeral. It simplified. Nora stopped calling, not out of anger, out of uncertainty. She didn't know who she was in my story anymore. I returned to work quietly. Design meetings, fabric samples, late nights, the same life I'd always had, just without hiding it. Occasionally, people mentioned the funeral, in hushed tones, as if it had been a revelation. It was, but not the kind people think. I didn't gain confidence that day. I reclaimed it. A week after the funeral, I visited my mother's house one last time. Most things were already packed, but in her bedroom drawer, I found something small, a folded note, written in her handwriting. Ayla, if you're reading this, you've finally stopped shrinking yourself. I always knew you would. You never needed to prove anything, just to survive long enough to become yourself. I sat on the edge of the bed and cried for the first time since the funeral. Not from pain, from release. Nora never apologized directly, but she stopped mocking, stopped competing, stopped performing. Sometimes, silence is the apology. People don't know how to say. I still wear simple clothes, still choose craftsmanship over logos. The difference now, I don't hide anymore. Outro. Some people think success is loud. My mother taught me otherwise. She taught me that real power doesn't announce itself. It walks quietly into rooms and lets truth do the talking. And on the day she was buried, I didn't just lose a mother. I inherited her strength.